I'm Charlie Bright of Gold Derby, and today, as part of our Meet the Experts TV documentary panel, I am joined by Bao Nguyen, the director of the Netflix documentary film The Greatest Night in Pop, Chloe Sarosh from the Nat Geo documentary series Queens, Gotham Chopra from the Hulu documentary series Thank You, Goodnight, the Bon Jovi Story, and Dorsay Alavi, the director of the Prime Video docuseries Wayne Shorter Zero Gravity. The first question I want to ask is, I love hearing from people who work in documentaries what made them want to get involved with this genre and this type of filmmaking. So I'm curious as to what was the documentary you saw that made you say that I want to do that. And I'll go first to Chloe.
Oh, well, I work in natural history, and I'm drawn to stories of the natural world because the natural world needs as many people to love it right now as can possibly love it. It's in crisis and it needs everybody to be in love with it and to care. I mean, I grew up watching Attenborough, and I think we all did. We all love those stories from our childhoods. But what I particularly love is the idea of kind of crossing mediums. So I also watch a lot of drama and a lot of reality TV. And I love sort of the idea of kind of blending our genres and making something for a new audience that maybe hasn't felt that natural history is for them to this point, because we need to reach those audiences. We need the younger audiences. We need a more diverse audience because the natural world deserves it.
And what about you, Gotham?
I mean, my background mostly is in sports docs. So, Hoop Dreams was one of probably the seminal ones. I'm also by background a reporter originally, so a lot of the more Errol Morris, Fog of War, those types of, also just from maybe a filmmaking technique. Errol Morris obviously being such a pioneer in so many different ways. But there's so many. I mean, just incredible. What I love is, I always sort of say they call it unscripted for a reason. And everyone is different and they take shape. And so, I mean, I'm a fan of everybody here also, and influences all around.
And Dorsay?
Well, I come from a narrative background, mostly art house cinema and independent filmmaking, but I would say Wim Wenders' Salt of the Earth, Salgado documentary. I'm very drawn to character-driven films. So in the same vein, I wanted to tell a story that was character-driven, even though it was a documentary, but actually could feel like a film rather than a typical documentary. So I would say art house, Wim Wenders. I loved Pina as well.
And Bao, how about you?
Yeah, I'll piggyback on what Gotham said. And Hoop Dreams was probably one of the first documentaries I saw. I was still very young, but just seeing this epic longitudinal story, but still be so intimate and personal, really inspired me. I would also say there was a film called Up the Yangtze by Young Chang, who, at the time, I hadn't seen many Asian American documentary filmmakers, and I got to see that film at Silver Docs, and saw a Q&A with Young, and I was like, even though the film, now I know documentaries are very hard to make, but when I watched the film and heard his Q&A, I was like, oh, he looks like me, we have a similar background, maybe it's not so hard. 15, 16 years later, I realize it's much harder, but I think there's such I'm very grateful to work in this field, because I think we're not just storytellers, we're very much caretakers of stories, because these are real people's lives. These are things that matter, and so feel very privileged to be in this field.
The Silver Docs, that's the AFI festival in Silver Spring, right?
It was, yeah. Now, sadly, it's not the same anymore.
Unfortunately, nothing's the same as it used to be. But I moving away from what was the documentaries that inspired you, I'm always interested to hear what filmmakers and people behind the scenes of movies and TV are currently watching. And I'm curious as to what was the last documentary film or series you saw that really like wowed you, that floored you? And I'll go to you first, Dorsay.
Four Daughters. I thought that was incredible. The play with the fictionalizing, using actors and using the actual subjects. I thought it was very powerful. I thought it was excellent in how they decided to structure the documentary and use what they didn't have. I thought it was very innovative. It was gut-wrenching, difficult to watch, but it was one of my favorites this year. There was a great year, I think. 20 Days in Mariupol was amazing as well. I was very taken with that. I felt like I was really there, and very brave filmmaking.
And Chloe?
Yeah, I was actually going to say the 20 Days of Mariupol for me was unbelievable. I think incredibly hard to watch, but that's so important sometimes. And probably like everyone here, then I have to go and watch a bit of trash and make up for it, and then I go back in and watch something. But that was so brave and so immediate, just beautiful. But I also love it when documentaries sort of mix up genres. So I was just last night I was watching something because I love a bit of ancient history, and I was watching a Netflix doc about the Neanderthals, and there's recreated drama in there. They'd used they'd used a lot of natural history footage. They blended it together, and it was just so interesting. So and I love watching music docs as well, but we're not going to get into that because you guys know much more than I do about that. But yeah, it's too difficult to choose.
And what about you, Bao?
Earlier this year, I watched Eno, documentary about Brian Eno, and it's self-proclaimed generative documentary where no cut is the same as the previous cut. So it's hard to explain, and it sounds a bit of a gimmick, to be honest. And that's what when I went in to watch it at Sundance, I thought, oh, how am I going to really enjoy this and feel grounded in a story? But the way that it's created and how it reflects the ethos of Brian Eno is really amazing. And so I hope everyone gets to see it, and then the version that you see will be totally different from the version I see.
And Gotham?
Well, you're gonna think I'm pandering, but Bao's movie to music is like a different, I've just sort of entered into this realm. And so even during the process of making this, I was just like looking around, and Greatest Night of Pop, which was like such a phenomena, like on Netflix, was something I watched and felt really just excited by. So that's probably the most recent, but I also go back and look at things that, so it's kind of like your first question. Again, back in the world of sports docs, The Two Escobars is like one of my favorite because it blends like sports and politics. And so I love that. And, Navalny, like I thought was brilliant. So that's something maybe I watched a year or two ago. So yeah, I just, it is, I think like actually, you were saying, Chloe, like the medium is constantly shifting and it needs a lot of attention. I'm fortunate, like I work with a lot of different filmmakers, and we've sort of built this company that, I like to think of as creator driven. And so I'm watching a lot of stuff like in various forms, and keeps me really busy. But, this industry, I think is getting better, but it's shifting constantly and everything's collapsing onto itself. So, it takes constant attention, like keeping an eye on what's happening.
And something I'm also curious about is, we live in such crazy times. I'm curious. It feels like, documentaries can be some of the most important things for people to consume, but it also feels like on a certain level that there are certain things that might be threatening to documentary filmmaking. And I'm curious as to if any of you see threat or potential challenges or threats to making good documentaries or truthful documentaries these days. And I want to start with you, Bao.
Well, I think the threats are not just sort of focused on documentary. I think it's sort of the screen industry as a whole and art as a whole. There's so much, and I hate the term content, but for the lack of a better term, there's so much content nowadays, and we're all vying for people's attention. And so by thinking about it in terms of an attention economy, I think we're forgetting a lot of the reasons that we make art and why we make films. It's not just the problem of the industry, but I think it's sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy for us as filmmakers and storytellers of like, how do we get this project made? We have to do XYZ to meet like a market demand. And I hope that sort of mentality shifts in a way. And it takes a large amount of actors in order to do that, rather than blame it on, I guess, a certain sector of the industry.
And Dorsay?
On the creative side, I think it's still very important to have individual voices and not lean on anything that's formulaic. I think what the risk is that if we start to formalize the documentary process and always choose what's sensational rather than what's more subtle or what's needed at the time, people tend to focus on, oh, is this a big enough name? Is this does it have something sexy to it? It loses its authenticity. I think for filmmakers, you have to choose what you're passionate about, and it's not always aligned with the marketplace. So the challenge of any filmmaker, whether it's narrative or documentary, is staying true to the subject matter, but also finding alternative outlets to get your work out there so you can stay true to the subject. And also not feel like you have to participate in, oh, I've got the biggest name, the biggest, it's going to have the biggest eyeballs. So I would say staying true to the content and also finding alternative ways of getting the work out there.
And Gotham?
I mean, I'm not sure I could say it any better. So I don't envy you, Chloe, having to go after this. But I think we live in the algorithmic economy, so we're constantly responding to, and I feel like I pitch the same, group of people over and over and over again. I think it's easy to get caught up in that and try to chase the latest trend, but these things take forever to make also. So by the time you make it, then like the trend has changed. I, again, work with a group of incredible filmmakers, and the thing we sort of nerd out and talk a lot about is the only algorithm that matters is Joseph Campbell. Like, focus on story, and story is an art, and story is like everything else. It's work, and you have to practice the craft. And, we're all living in short form. The long form seems to be making a resurgence. I did a whole bunch of stuff called mid form, like when Facebook watched, and that came and went. But it's like at the end of the day, it's about storytelling. It's great characters, it's conflict, it's tension, and so I try to focus on that and sort of stay away from the threats, because yes, the industry is under siege, and it's constantly shifting. And if you sort of try to gamify it, I feel like it changes right beneath your feet,
And what about you, Chloe?
Well, we have one very practical issue in our sector of the industry, which is climate change, because nothing is the same anymore. We go out to film things and the world has changed and nothing is predictable, and what we thought we might find there is not. And that's really difficult. But also a similar vein to what these guys have brought up, we desperately need new voices in our sector of the industry. Queen's brought through new voices, it did that, but we left the door open. But my concern is, as the industry contracts and people play safe, those new people that we found who have so much promise and whose voices we need to hear will be forgotten about again because they're deemed as risk. And that sense of risk aversion, I think, could be really damaging for us. So we just have to keep pushing on that door and keep help new filmmakers come through in any way we can. But yeah, it concerns me. And
for my last question, I just wanted to I like having a little bit of fun with this, since we are an awards website. If I'm curious as to if any of you were to win something, what is your ideal walk-up music as you would make your way to the podium? And Gotham, you're up first.
I mean, having just done a Bon Jovi, I think it would be sacrilege for me to talk about any other band. In the vast catalog, 40 years, maybe I'd go back to a classic. So, Living on a Prayer, probably, John hitting that high note, which, much to his chagrin, he can't hit right now. But yeah, I think that would be the one that I would use as my walk-up music.
And Dorsay?
Well, I'll go with something kind of, I would say I have to have Wayne Shorter's music behind me. It would make the most sense. So I would either go with Speak No Evil or Pegasus.
And Bao, would it be We Are the World for you?
I mean, that's the obvious answer, right? So
Do you have it? Do you have another like personal one that you would want?
I mean, if I picked like another Lionel Richie song, maybe like Dancing on the Ceiling or something, just as a fun one to walk up stage on.
And what about you, Chloe?
We're really lucky we had an original theme written for us by a young British Black artist called Aloia, and she's Ethiopian Egyptian, and her sound is so cool. And she wrote this theme tune for us, which is all about the power of Mother Nature. So I would be thrilled to have that playing. It's a great tune.
Well, Bao, Gotham, Chloe, and Dorsay, thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best. And keep coming to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions in advance of the nominations coming out in July. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.